The fire hissed like it was angry at being tamed. A sear of blue flame licked over the edge of the steel grill, and Quinton Raynor leaned in to flip the slab of marinated meat with an oversized spatula. The heat barely fazed him until it did. There was a sound. Not the sizzle of fat or the crackle of wood, but the sharp hiss of flesh meeting metal. Quinton flinched, pulled his hand back, and saw the damage immediately. The skin across the top of his right hand was blistered, already peeling in places, red and raw. A patch the size of a playing card throbbed with a pain that made his vision water for half a second. He hissed through his teeth. "Damn it, that's gonna sting." A few feet away, 3 alien students froze. They were interns exchange researchers from the Zyrix Coalition Institute of Biological Studies, stationed at Earth's newly opened Interplanetary Culture and Culinary Exchange Center in Nevada. The center was a sprawling complex of labs, kitchens, and cultural auditoriums, and today was the first ever cross-species grilling symposium. Quinton had been hired as a culinary consultant and instructor, mostly for his skill in open-fire cooking and general know-how in not burning down the place. The tallest alien, a blue-gray being with a thin thorax and 3 luminous eyes clustered at the top of his head, let the tongs drop from his hand. "Fatal dermal trauma," he announced. The other 2, a shorter orange-skinned student and a pale, almost translucent being with no visible mouth, immediately began scanning Quinton with portable medical devices. Subject is hemorrhaging fluid. Dermis integrity is compromised. "Tissue necrosis probability exceeds 70%, said the orange one, voice trembling. Quinton barely looked up from the grill. "Can someone grab me that Aloe bottle by the prep table?" he asked, his voice calm but tight from the pain. "You are dying," said the translucent one. Quinton blinked at it. "No, I'm cooking." "You must cease functioning," the blue-gray one said, stepping forward. "We have protocols for post-fatality biological recovery. You must be laid flat. Do not resist." "I'm not resisting." "I'm just not dying," Quinton said, finally walking over to the prep table. His hand shook slightly as he pumped a generous glob of aloe onto the burn, then carefully spread it over the area. He exhaled, lips pursed. "Yep, that hurts." The orange alien was still staring at the scanner. "But your dermal layers are ruptured. Your fluid pressure it's a second-degree burn," Quinton interrupted. "Hurts like hell, but I'll live. I'm gonna wrap it after I'm done with the ribs." The aliens watched in silence as he returned to the grill. His movements were slower now, more deliberate. He used his uninjured hand for the heavier work, adjusting the spit and flipping meat with care. Sweat beaded on his forehead. A few moments passed before the translucent one asked, "Is this normal burns?" Quinton said, not looking up. "Yeah." "Happens a lot when you're working with fire. You learn to deal." "But the pain's still there," he said, "but the food's not gonna cook itself." The rib meat hissed as he drizzled marinade over it, the smell of garlic and pepper filling the air. The blue-gray one stepped back and began recording a report into his device. Subject Quinton Raynor, human male, exhibits statistically abnormal response to catastrophic dermal injury. Refuses emergency cessation of activity. Requests topical gel instead of surgical intervention. Cultural implications unclear, Quinton chuckled under his breath. Catastrophic dermal injury? You guys don't get out much, huh? The orange one tilted his head. We are required to observe but not participate. Fire is forbidden on Zyrix due to atmospheric volatility. We simulate heat using vibration chambers or light-based transmutation. Well, that sounds safe, Quinton muttered. By the time the ribs were done, the pain in his hand had settled into a deep throb. He walked slowly, careful not to bump his injured hand, and set the finished meat on a cutting board. Then he turned to the aliens. "You want to learn about human cooking? Then you're gonna learn about human injuries too." He peeled back the gauze wrapping from the first aid kit and began wrapping his hand tightly. The translucent one moved closer, watching intently. May we conduct a scan during your biological response cycle? As long as you don't touch the food, Quinton said. The next 2 hours went by with awkward but earnest cooperation. The aliens asked permission before scanning every change in skin color and moisture. Quinton explained what blisters were, how skin healed over time, and why pain was sometimes a good thing. Helps you not do the same dumb thing twice, he said. Your species is strangely tolerant of pain, said the blue-gray one. Quinton snorted. You ever stepped on a Lego at 2 in the morning? The aliens didn't answer, but they recorded everything. Later that evening, after the event ended, Quinton sat in the med bay as a human nurse properly cleaned and dressed the burn. It was bad, but not unmanageable. He'd be off heavy duty cooking for a couple of weeks, and the skin would take at least 10 days to start scabbing properly. You should have come here right away, the nurse said, inspecting the burn. Couldn't let the meat dry out, Quinton replied. The nurse frowned. You need to take this seriously. That's why I'm here now. The aliens waited outside the med bay, their devices buzzing softly. When Quinton emerged, hand bandaged, face pale and drawn, they approached him carefully. Your dermal layers are not fully recovered, the orange one said. Nope, Quinton said. Takes time. Human cells gotta do their thing. And you continued your task despite the injury, said the blue-gray one. Yeah, why? Quinton paused. Because people were hungry. Because I said I would. Because pain doesn't always mean stop, it just means be careful. The translucent one shifted its weight. We miscalculated your survivability. We believed the injury was fatal. Well, it wasn't, Quinton said, but it sucked. The aliens nodded slowly. That night, the report they submitted to the Zyrix Coalition was flagged for irregularity due to the humans' behavior. A follow-up directive was issued. Observe more humans under duress, particularly in culinary environments. Quinton, meanwhile, was given a week off from grill duty. He didn't argue. The pain was still bad, and changing the dressing was a reminder of just how deep the burn had gone. He wore a sling to keep from moving the hand too much, and he followed the nurse's instructions to the letter. But when the Zyrix students asked if they could shadow him again once he was back on duty, he agreed on one condition. You gotta try the ribs next time, he said. No simulating heat, real fire, real grill. The orange one hesitated. We are not designed for flame proximity. Then you learn. Just like I learned to stand still while 3 aliens declared me dead. And with that, Quinton Raynor walked slowly toward the center's exit, bandaged hand at his side, ribs cooling in a Tupperware container under his arm. The next morning, Quinton arrived at the center's outdoor kitchen with his right arm in a sling and a cup of black coffee clutched in his left hand. The bandages under his shirt sleeve tugged a little as he moved, and the skin around the burn still felt hot and tight. He gritted his teeth when he accidentally bumped the elbow against the edge of the prep table. 3 Zyrix students stood waiting beside a metal cart, observing him like he might collapse without warning. I'm not gonna drop dead mid-sentence, Quinton said, setting the coffee down. You can stop looking like I'm about to molt. We read multiple human case studies overnight, said the blue-gray one, who now wore a translator harness shaped like a collar. We believe your species' response to trauma lacks coherence across individuals. That's not wrong, Quinton muttered, pulling a stool closer with his foot. Some people faint at blood, some run marathons after surgery. Depends. The translucent one was holding a thermal sensor which it angled toward Quinton's arm. The device hummed lightly. There is a localized heat increase of 4.2 degrees. Yeah, Quinton said, that's inflammation. My immune system's pissed. This is intentional. No, he said. It's just what happens when skin gets damaged. The body floods the area with white blood cells and fluids to fight infection and repair tissue. Hurts like hell, but it's not optional. The orange Zyrix, now wearing protective sleeves and a thick apron, stepped forward cautiously. We wish to learn to grill under your guidance. Quinton looked at him, then at the 2 open pits behind them, their coals still cold and gray. You understand that fire gets hot, right? We acquired thermal-resistant gloves, the orange one said, holding them up. They were thick enough to handle magma, probably, and at least 3 sizes too big. Quinton sipped his coffee. All right, but no crying if your cloak catches a spark. We do not produce tears, said the translucent one, just an expression. He gestured to the bag of charcoal beside the pit. Go ahead, dump that in. Even layer. The orange one lifted the bag awkwardly and tipped it, spilling half onto the ground. That's not even, Quinton said. That's a charcoal avalanche. The blue-gray one knelt and started scooping the excess back into the pit by hand. The glove snagged on a piece of broken wood. Your fuel is irregular. It's not designed for aesthetics. It's designed to burn. The translucent one hovered beside the grill, watching as Quinton handed the lighter to the orange one. Do I aim it at the material? Yes, Quinton said, but don't point it at your face, or anyone else's. The orange one fumbled with the lighter trigger, then flinched back when the flame burst out with a whoosh. It is unstable, it's a lighter, Quinton said. It's working exactly how it's supposed to. With a shaky hand, the Zyrix ignited a corner of the charcoal. It smoldered, then caught. The others leaned in, eyes reflecting the flickering orange light. The translucent one tilted its head. It produces visible energy. It's fire, Quinton said. That's the whole point. Over the next hour, the aliens took turns attempting basic tasks, seasoning meat, arranging skewers, flipping vegetables. They moved with stiff, almost reverent caution, like the grill might lunge at them. Quinton offered corrections when needed, though he stayed mostly seated. Around midday, the sun intensified. The heat from the coals combined with the dry air made everything feel like it was wrapped in a hot towel. Quinton's shirt stuck to his back. The bandaged hand itched constantly, and when he scratched near the edge, it sent a flash of pain up his forearm. Don't touch it, he muttered to himself. The translucent one noticed. Is there an issue? It's healing. That means it feels weird. That's normal. May we observe the dressing change later? Why? We lack direct access to live tissue regeneration studies. Our lab samples do not respond to stress variables. Quinton sighed. Fine. But you're doing cleanup for the rest of the week. The blue-gray one stabbed at a chicken thigh with a fork. It remains gelatinous. Because it's raw, Quinton said. You need to wait. For how long? Until it's not pink anymore and the juices run clear. The alien hesitated. That metric is subjective. That's cooking, Quinton said. It's not a math problem. They cooked in silence for a while. Smoke curled upward in lazy spirals. The orange one accidentally dropped a bell pepper slice into the coals and looked mortified. Acceptable loss, Quinton said. Just don't do it with the steaks. Later in the afternoon, the blue-gray one returned from the kitchen building dragging a wheeled cooler. We retrieved hydration units for all participants. Quinton opened it, found bottles of water and a few packets of cold nutrient paste. Thanks, he said, grabbing a bottle. You didn't have to. We determined your species experiences performance degradation when dehydrated. You're not wrong, he said, uncapping the bottle, but I'm mostly just tired. The translucent one peered at him. Your circulatory rhythm is elevated. Because I've been sitting in front of a hot grill for 4 hours. Should you not rest? Quinton took another sip. I'll rest when we're done. The translucent one turned its scanner toward the grill. This process is exceedingly inefficient. It's not supposed to be fast, Quinton said. It's supposed to taste good. Why? He set the bottle down. Because food isn't just fuel, it's memory, family, culture. You ever eaten something that reminded you of someone? We do not associate consumption with remembrance. Then you're missing out. The orange one approached with a small skewer of grilled mushrooms, holding it out. I prepared this using your instructions. You may test it. Quinton took the skewer with his left hand and bit off one piece. He chewed slowly. Not bad, he said. Little heavy on the salt. I followed your measurements. You probably packed the spoon. I did. There you go. The blue-gray one squinted at the grill. I believe my protein segment is now opaque. Then it's probably done, Quinton said. Take it off before it dries out. Each of the aliens gathered their finished portions and stood awkwardly, waiting. "Well," Quinton asked. "Try it." The translucent one lifted a piece of charred zucchini and inserted it into a small flap near its upper torso. A moment later, it made a soft whirring sound. Textural complexity detected. Unfamiliar but not unpleasant. The orange one bit into a skewer and emitted a low click. "This is rewarding." The blue-gray one chewed slowly, then paused. "I experience a warm sensation." "It's called being full," Quinton said. "Welcome to lunch." In the quiet that followed, the only sounds were the breeze and the hiss of cooling metal. Eventually, the orange one turned to him. "When your injury heals fully, will the dermis revert to its original state?" "No," Quinton said. "It'll scar." "That is undesirable, sometimes. But it's also a reminder." "Of what?" "That I should have moved the grill tools before reaching over the grate," the translucent one's scanner chirped. "Your tissue regeneration is proceeding at expected rates. However, the internal fluid distribution remains uneven. That's swelling." "Is it compromised?" "No, just annoying." The blue-gray one recorded another data point. Human pain tolerance is not only variable but functionally integrated into cultural ritual. Injury does not preclude participation in activities requiring fine motor control. Quinton raised an eyebrow. "You just say I'm stubborn in 6 languages?" "Yes." He stood slowly, wincing as the skin around the bandage stretched. "All right. I think that's enough grilling for today." The translucent one floated closer. "Will you permit us to observe the dressing removal now?" Quinton stared at him. "You're really committed to this, huh?" "We submitted a proposal for interspecies wound recovery comparative analysis." "Your case is now the control model," he sighed. "Fine, but someone's bringing me ice first." The blue-gray one nodded. "We will retrieve it promptly." As they scattered to collect supplies, Quinton sat back down and stretched his legs in front of him. The sun had started to dip behind the facility, casting long shadows across the stone floor. His hand still throbbed, but less than before. The aliens returned with a gel pack, a fresh roll of gauze, and a portable scanner. The translucent one held a small notepad, its surface flickering with active data logs. Quinton peeled the bandage back slowly. The skin underneath was red, glossy, and slightly swollen. A few blisters had drained overnight, leaving puckered patches of raw tissue. The outer edges had started to dry and darken. The orange one leaned in. "You are disassembling the protective layer." "It needs to be cleaned," Quinton said, "and aired out." He used saline to rinse the wound, then patted it dry with sterile gauze. The translucent one made a chirping noise. "The dermal boundary exhibits regeneration patterns consistent with mammalian models, but at an accelerated rate. Means I'm healing fine." The blue-gray one tapped its tablet. "We will submit this for peer review." "Just don't post pictures," Quinton muttered. They watched in silence as he applied antibiotic ointment and wrapped the hand again. As he stood to leave, the orange one asked, "Will you continue teaching us?" Quinton looked at them, then at the grill. "Yeah. But next time you're lighting the coals without flinching." They nodded solemnly. "And bring better gloves," he added. "Those things look like oven mitts from a medieval play." The translucent one tilted its head. "We will requisition replacements immediately." Quinton picked up his coffee cup, now lukewarm, and headed for the door. Behind him, the Zyrix trio resumed their recordings, quietly debating the significance of scar tissue as a cultural artifact. By the 3rd week, the bandage was thinner. The burn had stopped weeping, and Quinton could flex his fingers without that glass shard sensation that used to shoot up his wrist. The skin beneath the wrap was still pink and tight, but the nurse had cleared him for full mobility that morning so long as he kept it clean, moisturized, and out of direct heat. He wasn't back on open flame yet, but the center's indoor culinary lab had temperature-controlled induction grills, and that was enough to ease him back into it. The Zyrix students were already waiting inside when he arrived, standing in a loose triangle near the prep counter. The blue-gray one had a data pad tucked under one limb. The translucent one hovered near the ceiling, gently rotating, and the orange one had donned a new apron with the phrase "Meat is mystery" printed in 3 languages. Quinton didn't ask who designed it. "Today's about precision," he said, setting a large cut of fish onto a chilled tray. "No fire, no burns, just technique. We have reviewed 74 hours of human cooking tutorials overnight," said the translucent one. The majority contained shouting or rapid hand gestures. "Yeah, that tracks," Quinton said, rinsing his hands. "Now you can see what it looks like when someone isn't trying to teach a camera." The blue-gray one stared at the fish. "This organism is deceased." "It's a fillet," Quinton said. "You don't cook live fish. We were not certain of your protocols. You think I'm grilling them while they're still flopping." "There are terrestrial crustaceans that respond post-mortem," the orange one offered. "We witnessed a severed limb twitch for several minutes." "That's reflex," Quinton said, patting the fish dry. "You're not going to see that here." He laid the fillet on a cutting board and began slicing it into neat, even portions. His hand moved with practiced rhythm, but now and then he paused to adjust his grip, still careful, still guarding against overstretching the healing tissue. "You're watching my hand again," he said without looking up. "Your recovery rate continues to exceed expectations," said the blue-gray one. We had projected lingering dysfunction. "I do rehab exercises twice a day, and I'm not lifting anything heavier than a skillet yet." The translucent one floated closer. "Do you resent the injury?" "No point," Quinton said. "It happened, I adapted." "That's the job." The orange one leaned in slightly. "But you experienced discomfort." "Yeah," Quinton said, "and I'll probably have a scar, won't be the first." The blue-gray one tapped its pad. "You carry multiple dermal anomalies," scars, Quinton corrected. "Most of them from kitchens. Some from construction, 1 or 2 from being an idiot as a teenager, but they're just part of me now." The translucent one blinked softly. "Do humans not attempt to erase these markers?" "Some do," he said, "but others keep them. They tell stories. Of pain, of learning." He placed the sliced fish into a bowl and passed it to the orange one. "Season that with salt, pepper, and lemon, just enough to taste it, not enough to drown it." The Zyrix moved with more confidence than they had during their first week. The orange one even cracked open a lemon with something approaching familiarity. Still, they measured each pinch and drizzle with agonizing precision. "You don't need to calibrate each grain of salt," Quinton said, watching. "We seek consistency. Start with intuition. Then test." The translucent one hovered lower. "Your species tolerates uncertainty. We live with it," Quinton said. "You can plan all you want. Sometimes the pan's too hot. Sometimes the power fails. Sometimes your hand ends up on a steel grate." The blue-gray one nodded slowly. "Control is not always possible." "Nope," he said, "but you can prepare for what to do when things go sideways." They worked in silence for a while. The lab's cooling system hummed softly overhead. Quinton moved around the counter, checking temperatures and adjusting settings. He didn't push his hand too far, but he didn't baby it, either. At one point, the orange one accidentally knocked a bowl of chopped herbs onto the floor. It froze, limbs rigid. Quinton crouched, scooped up the pieces into the trash with a rag and said, "Go chop more." "Happens." The alien hesitated. "You are not alarmed." "It was parsley," Quinton said. "Not uranium," I expected reprimand. "You think I've never dropped anything? I once spilled 3 gallons of soup into a fuse box." "That kitchen didn't have power for 2 days." The translucent one hovered closer. "You remained employed." "I cleaned it up," Quinton said. "Then I learned not to store broth near electrical panels." The blue-gray one placed 2 seasoned fillets onto the grill. "Your culture appears to reward recovery over avoidance." "Exactly," he said. "It's not about never messing up, it's about what you do next." An hour later, the lab smelled of herbs and citrus and something just beginning to brown. The Zyrix had each prepared a plate, carefully grilled fish with sautéed vegetables, plated with almost surgical neatness. Quinton tasted each one, chewing slowly, nodding slightly. Your heat controls better, he said. Still a little shy with the seasoning, but that'll come. The translucent one hovered beside him. When will you return to cooking with exposed flame? When the nurse clears it, Quinton said. I'm not rushing it, scar tissue's still fresh. I need full mobility back before I handle hot grates again. The orange one tilted its head. Do you fear re-injury? Sure, he said. But fear's not the same as avoidance. You respect the danger. You don't pretend it's not there. The blue-gray one closed its pad. We have updated our assessment of human pain response and behavioral adaptation. Great, Quinton said. I'll frame it next to my chili cook-off ribbon. The translucent one drifted toward the exit. Will you permit us to document your final dermal regeneration once complete? You're really committed to this project. It has. Expanded in scope. As long as I'm not missing skin, knock yourselves out. After cleanup, the Zyrix filtered out one by one, offering quiet nods and murmured thanks. Quinton stayed behind to wipe down the counters and sanitize the cutting surfaces. The ache in his hand had dulled to a manageable pulse, like a reminder instead of a warning. He paused by the sink, flexed his fingers again, and watched the skin stretch across the healing burn. It would always be there now, not as a problem, just part of the map. The next day, the Zyrix presented him with a laminated poster. It was a stylized drawing of a human hand, annotated in their native script, showing stages of healing, scar maturation, and muscle recovery. At the bottom, a translated quote read, "Injury is not failure. It is evolution." Quinton stared at it. You made this, the orange one nodded. We synthesized the data and rendered it for your cultural preference. It's weirdly touching, he said, then hung it next to the spice rack. They resumed practice that afternoon. No injuries, no shouting, no equipment failures, just learning. The burn healed. The fish cooked evenly. The aliens adapted, and no one died.